the main event, the Tribal Combat match for the WWE Undisputed Universal Championship. Jey Uso versus Roman Reigns. Finally, after 3 years nearly, seeing this whole Bloodline story play out, which I've been a big fan of, it was tremendous to finally see Roman Reigns' entrance live. And yes, I had my ones in the air because, man, there were some people booing, some people cheering. A mixed response, but at least if you're booing, Roman Reigns is getting the correct boos this time. And if you're cheering, that just goes to show how much respect Roman Reigns has earned among the WWE fan base. And on top of that, Jey Uso, man, his entrance, we were all lit for that. You know, we were doing the down since day one-ish. We've been down since. You know, that was just good stuff, man. Seeing it live. But this match came on pretty late, and I think between the entrances and the match itself, this almost took up probably about 70 minutes of the show. But that being said, looking at this match, it was pretty late, and this was a very slow, methodical match. And that's very typical of these Bloodline matches, particularly with Roman. They start off slow, and then they build into this high-action drama, fast-paced, back-and-forth match. That wasn't the case here. This kind of was staying slow and methodical, and Jey would get his big comeback, and then Roman would get his comeback, and it is slowed down, and then it'd be comeback here from Jey, slow down, comeback from Roman, slow down. So yeah, the match never really got going to a fast pace, but even though it was late and it was over midnight, those of us there in Fort Field was still staying into the match. There was definitely a lot of cheers for Jey Uso, a lot of people rooting for him, and Roman Reigns, basically a few, and you know, the mixed reaction. One of the things that I felt really hurt this match, though, is you call it tribal combat. So I'm thinking the ring is going to be decorated with a lot of tribal Samoan theme ornaments and stuff like that, decorations. I'm thinking that maybe there's going to be some Samoan theme weapons around the ring, but no, this was basically a standard no DQ match that utilized regular weapons. And it's like, okay, if the idea of tribal combat was just their way of saying that the tribal chief title is on the line for who gets to carry that right, you might as well just said that. It reminded me a lot of WrestleMania 37 when you had Apollo Crews versus Big E and what they called, I believe, a Nigerian drum match. And the problem with that match is, once again, there were no decorations of Nigerian culture around the ring. There were no, hardly, maybe one or two, but basically the majority, I would say about only 5% of the weapons there were of Nigerian culture. Everything else was just the standard stuff you see in your regular no-holds-barred, no-DQ matches, and that's what this felt like. And of course, there was the interference from Solo Sikoa. And if you follow me, one of the biggest things that I have not been a fan of when it comes to these Bloodline matches and Roman Reigns is the fact that Roman Reigns is constantly relying on interference to win his match. I wish they go back to that dominant Roman Reigns that got his matches, where he won his matches clean, and it just came off as, well, he's just that dominant as a world champion, such as when he defeated top stars like Goldberg and John Cena. But going into this one was even more different. You know, usually it's the Usos or Solo Sikoa would interfere in one point and that's it. But this one, man, it got to the point where it just felt like Roman Reigns was sitting back and barking orders. Hey, Solo, go ahead and nail him down this time. Pick him on up for the Samoan spike, and I'll go ahead and get ready for the spear. Now go ahead and pick me up, you know, and give me a hand. Like, man, like it's like Roman is just now just relying on Solo to do everything for him almost nearly in the match. And of course, this leads to Jey Uso spearing Roman through the barricade, and Jey Uso ends up getting a super kick on Solo Sikoa and lays him out with the splash, the same type of splash through the announce table that it took out Jimmy. And the fans here at this point were really feeling it. And Jey Uso throws Roman into the ring. He nails the big splash. 1, 2, and a hooded figure wearing all black pulls Jey Uso out. And this is the moment where Yeah, I knew it was a possibility. Yeah, I knew given what WWE does in its history when it comes to these sibling storylines, it was most likely gonna happen whether you're talking about Vince Russo swerves or not. And thus it was. Pulls down the mask, pulls down the hoodie, and for the hooded figure to reveal himself as Jimmy Uso. So after all this big talking about what family should and shouldn't do, he turns on his brother Jey, kicks him in the face, and man, people went from chanting, "We want Jimmy" there in the stadium to "F you, Jimmy." I mean, they were giving the "F you, Roman" chants all throughout the match, and Roman was basically feeling like, he was working into it and playing up to the crowd. And this, of course, leads a shock Roman, who goes for the spear on Jey through the table that was set up in the ring and scores the 1-2-3 to retain his undisputed Universal WWE Championship. And he of course, walks off. And Jey Uso, throughout the whole show, even when the show itself went off the air, did a tremendous job as majority of the audience was walking out and they looked livid too. Jey Uso basically just standing in the ring, disappointed himself and disappointed in what his brother just did to him. So you got to see all that. Now, that being said, match-wise, I don't think this was the best of what we've seen in the Bloodline story. Pretty standard stuff. Wasn't great, but it wasn't bad either. It was okay, serviceable. The big thing that a lot of people are talking about, though, was this the right decision from WWE to have Jimmy Uso turn on his brother Jey Uso? So a few things. If you've seen an interview with Ariel Helwani with the Usos, they've mentioned that that's one of their biggest dreams in WWE is to go on and have a WrestleMania match. On top of that, when you look at what the Usos have accomplished, there really is nowhere else for them to go as a tag team. When you've already have held those world tag team titles longer than any team in WWE history, and you've main evented with those titles at WrestleMania, it don't get no bigger than that. So I'm not even saying that Jimmy and Jey breaking up is the wrong decision there. I just thought it could have been executed better here. Now I'm pretty sure that by the time this review is up, WWE would have already probably booked Jimmy Uso to give his explanation for why he turned on his brother Jey. So it's another thing too where it's not like they weren't planting the seeds for this. One of the complaints that we often have in WWE history is that too many times it feels like they're just doing swerves for the sake of swerves. But you go back in this Bloodline storyline, they were planting seeds about how Jey was talking about he was always trying to keep up with Jimmy, or Paul Heyman and Roman saying about how Jimmy always had issues with Jey wanting to be the right-hand man, or Jimmy himself proclaiming himself as the tribal chief. There's also another way this could make sense if we find out Jey Uso himself basically was talking a big game on TV within the confines of the story about wanting to be there for his brother Jimmy, but it's revealed by Jimmy that, Jey never called him. Jey never basically even tried to check on him, and he's figuring he did all this to try and protect his brother Jey, but in the end, it's like Jey just only cared about getting the world championship and becoming tribal chief, while only make it look like he was trying to do this out of revenge for his brother. I'm like, yeah, I could see that, how someone who felt like basically they were getting left away from the person they broke their neck for, and that in return, this person was going to break their neck for them back. Now, none of that's been explained, or maybe that is what the explanation be, but I'm just trying to make sense of this, and I think that's what a lot of this comes down to. This Bloodline storyline has been really good, and a lot of people feel that it's jumped the shark. However, I'm going to wait it out and see. Let's see what explanation they have, and depending on, and I have to be clear with this, they need a dang good explanation as to why Jimmy turned on his brother Jey in order to keep this bloodline story going strong. But it does look like that they are trying to move towards Jimmy and Jey, and there was a moment in this match where we saw Solo like he was ready to jump at Roman when Roman accidentally speared him because Jey had pulled Solo in the way. So we've also got that going now. So I'm going to just be patient and see. It's not often that I give WWE the benefit of the doubt based on how they've booked in recent years, but with the Bloodline, I'll give it the benefit of the doubt. Initially there, I wasn't feeling the finish, but I've had time to not only go back and watch it on TV and digest this and look back on the storyline and point things together, and I'm like, you know what, I'll go ahead and see. But at the end of the day, I still think that Roman Reigns should have won this match clean, and apparently there was people saying even that WWE was advertising this match, that to the point where they were saying that no one could interfere from the actual bloodline, and we got interference from Solo and Jimmy, of course. So I'm not sure what happened there, but as we saw earlier with Cody Rhodes and Brock Lesnar's steel step spots, WWE is at all no stranger when it comes to forgetting their own rules, making it confusing for us, the audience. That being said, like I said, this Jey Uso and Roman Reigns match, I thought their first two matches, ironically, that didn't have an audience back then was better 3 years ago. And even though this one did have an audience of 50,000 plus, which I got to be a part of, this match right here, like I said, I just thought it was okay. It didn't quite, to me, reach the levels that the previous matches that we see from the Bloodline usually do.